Hello, YouTube. We'll wait and see if people join. Every time I do one, I'm like, are people gonna join? Let's see. Hello. Hello, thank you for joining. Can you let me know if you can hear me? Hello, thank you for joining. I'm just gonna wait a few minutes, let people come in. Hi. Hello. Hello, people. Howdy, Rowdy Yates. Hey, Lance, how are you? Howdy. Hello, trans. Hello. I'll wait just a minute to get started, see if anyone, we usually have, is there more information on Bob Saget? A little bit. I think it's pretty clear what happened. Well, it appears clear. We're not for sure. We don't know for sure yet. Hello. Bob Saget and Rachel Maddow are the same person. I mean, who knows? Heart attack from the jab. I don't know. There was a video that he sent out. I don't know when exactly it was, but it was right before his tour. And we know that his tour just started. His first show was in Orlando, his comedy tour. His first show was in Orlando on January 7th, and he had another show on January 8th. And that's where he was. Ever see them in the same room together? I wouldn't imagine that they would ever be in the same room together anyway. Why would they be in the same room together? Oh, but there was a video that he put out. Hi, Sarah. Happy New Year's. Hello. Happy New Year. There was a video that he put out, and he said, I'm really excited about starting my tour. He said, I just got boosted. I'm really excited. I just wanted to go out and spread comedy and make people laugh, which is, have you ever read The Clown's Prayer? I'm going to read it for you. This is going to be fun. And then I'll get started. I'll give you a bit of an update we have on Bob Saget. And I actually have a really cool Bob Saget story. And then we can talk about how the Republicans are suing New York. This is really interesting. And then if you want to stay around a little bit longer, I didn't put this in the title, but I'm going to show you how the CDC is just totally backtracking. The Clown Prayer. So you guys know Chris Farley, right? I'm a huge comedy fan. And I also went to clown school, so I really appreciate the Clown's Prayer. And Chris Farley was really big on this and actually carried this around in his wallet and had this in his wallet. When he passed away, this was actually in his wallet, and it's called The Clown's Prayer. And what Bob Saget said, he just wanted to go around and make people laugh. It actually reminded me of this I've read it for you before if you've been here a while. So this is the clown's prayer, and this reminds me of what Bob Saget said in that little video before his comedy tour. As I stumble through this life, please help me to create more laughter than tears, dispense more happiness than gloom, spread more cheer than despair. Never let me become so indifferent that I fail to see the wonder in the eyes of a child or the twinkle in the eyes of the aged. Never let me forget that my total effort is to cheer people, make them happy, and forget at least momentarily all the unpleasantness in their lives. And in my final moment, may I hear you whisper, when you made my people smile, you made me smile. I think that's very beautiful. Chris Farley had that in his pocket when he passed away. It was in his wallet. That reminded me of Bob Saget and what he said. And that's another reason why I'm so against all these like late night comedians just being so angry and hateful and insulting their audience, because they don't understand the assignment. The assignment is you make people laugh, especially when you're in the midst of a crisis. You make people laugh, you help them forget the problems of the day-to-day, and you give them that respite. That's your job, and they don't understand the assignment. Okay, let's get started with Bob Saget. So we have a little bit more information as far as what happened. Not a whole lot, but the Orange County Sheriff's Office released a report on Monday about their investigation into the death of legendary comedian Bob Saget, who was found dead in Florida hotel room on Sunday. The report states that Saget was expected to check out Sunday, and his family had been unable to get a hold of him. Family members contacted the Ritz-Carlton security, who sent a team member to perform a welfare check. When security entered the room, all the lights were off and things were described as orderly. So apparently all his bags were packed and sort of by the door, like what you do before you leave a hotel. According to the report, Saget's left arm was across his chest, while his right arm was resting on the bed, no signs of trauma. Saget was on the bed and was cold to the touch and yellow and clammy. Dr. Joshua Stephanie, chief medical examiner for the Orange County, released the following initial autopsy reports on Monday. An autopsy was performed this morning on Robert Saget. Mr. Saget is a 65-year-old male who was found unresponsive in his hotel room. At this time, there is no evidence of drug use or foul play. The cause and manner of death are pending further studies, and investigation may take up to 10 to 12 weeks to complete. When the autopsy report has been finalized, a follow-up press statement will be released. Our condolences go out to Mr. Saget's loved ones during this difficult time. So to me, it's sounding more and more like, well, yeah, when you pass away, you get a little yellowish. I was with my dad when he passed away, and I know that's gross, but you get a little yellowy. So that's normal. It sounds more and more like some sort of heart failure, and that's very similar with how I would describe my uncle, who he basically just collapsed out of nowhere and grabbed his chest. So that's what it seems like, but that's an update. I have this, where is it? Bob Saget also, I thought this was pretty cool, and then I have a really cool story about him that just kind of shows his character, but he actually spoke about passing safety, was it? He actually spoke about the passing of Betty White, and this is what he said about Betty White. And this clearly was, about a few weeks ago? He said, she always said the love of her life was her husband, Alan Ludden, who she lost in 1981. Well, if things work out by Betty's design, in the afterlife, they are reunited. This is what he wrote. This is what Bob Saget wrote on Instagram. I don't know what happens when we die, but if Betty says you get to be with the love of your life, then I happily defer to Betty on this. My deepest condolences to her family and friends. Betty White, my God, we will miss you, he said. Most comedians suffer from depression and drug use. That is very true. A lot of comedians are sort of they're tortured souls. A lot of them are. That's sort of why you go into that field. I was actually listening to a podcast recently, and they were talking about fellow comedians, how a lot of comedians have narcissistic personality disorders, and usually that can come from having a really traumatic childhood, and it's this need for attention and this need to get ahead. The lifestyle of a comedian, especially coming up, is a huge hustle, and it's very competitive, and you have to be out there every night, and there's a lot of praise that goes on, and there's a lot of probably like endorphin rush or adrenaline that you get every time you get a big laughter from the audience. I know this because I've been on stage before. But while we're on the subject, you've had health issues. 65 years is a long time. But I don't know that much about him, but I don't see him as having a lot of health issues. Okay, this is a really cool story, and if you go to my community post, I posted a link to the story because there's a video and pictures of this as well. There's this random guy on Twitter. Again, the link to this whole story, the video and pictures, is in on my community page. This random guy on Twitter just gives a story about Bob Saget, and clearly it's true because of the evidence. But this is Brian Rosenmorsel on Twitter, and he says, I have a Bob Saget story to share. I never really met him, but in 2007, Guster was playing at the Boston Opera House. I think that's his son. We noticed that Saget was performing a sold-out show at the Orpheum down the street, and we thought it'd be funny to invite him to appear on stage with us. So this is just a random band that was playing, and they saw that Bob Saget was doing a show right down the street. He goes on to say, in some capacity, we reached out to his management to ask if he would burst through a Bob Saget banner during our encore. They told us to go ahead and make the banner. I was totally homespun. The encore comes, and we realize we never even told Adam about the plan. So Adam is I think it was the guy, was he playing bass or guitar? So he's just a random guy in the band, and they never told him about this big plan. We're on stage getting the audience to chant, Bob, 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 so that Bob Saget might magically burst through this oversized sheet of paper, and I can see Adam getting super annoyed. He's strumming his guitar super aggressively because he thinks this is a lame joke, an exercise in anticlimax. That will have our bus driver to our guitar burst through, and then they'll play a deflated encore after riling up the crowd to get an unfulfilled promise. Except Bob Saget actually burst through the banner. The crowd went effing bananas. He hugged Ryan, looked at all the band members, shook hands, waved to the crowd, told Ryan, "This is awesome," and then walked off stage. That was it. Many years later, Ryan was hanging out in LA with mutual friend Jeff Garlin when Saget showed up. After a while, Ryan asked him if he even remembers walking on stage at the Boston Opera House during the Guster show. Saget lit up and said, I got in a car which drove me to a venue, walked directly on stage, the crowd erupted, I walked off stage, got right back in the car, it was the best." And that's a Bob Saget story. I like that story. That's really sad. But again, more and more it sounds like heart failure. Yeah, and again, if you want to see that, it's on my community page. I linked, and you can watch the video. 65 is the average lifespan of male. That's why Social Security is 67. That's not a coincidence. I did not know that. I do know that males have a lower life expectancy than females. Okay, so let's go to New York. 65 is old by Hollywood standards. Dead at 27. Oh yeah, the 27 Club. That's pretty wild. A lot of people have died at the age of 27. I would take people when they would visit me in West Hollywood. I would take them on the Janis Joplin tour, my own little special tour. And Janis Joplin also passed away at 27. It's actually around, oh, it's 72, actually, someone said. So I lived in West Hollywood, and there's a place called Barney's Beanery, and they actually have a Janis Joplin table, and it was the place where Janis Joplin last was before she passed away at her hotel. And I think she had like shots of whiskey or something with a few people. And so whenever people visit me, we would go to Barney's Beanery. We would sit at the Janis Joplin table. And they took off the table covering. She carved her name in it. They took that off so people couldn't damage it. But if you sit at that booth, it's on the roof. If you look ahead, where Janis Joplin carved her name in it. And that's where she was right before she passed away. And then I take them to the hotel where she passed away. So what happened with Janis Joplin, and what happens with a lot of people, is she was a drug addict for a while. I think it was the white stuff, the white powder. She was a drug addict for a while and was actually clean for a long time. Went out, had some drinks, came back to her hotel room, was alone in her hotel room, got some of the white stuff from someone, did a little bit, and passed away. But that happens a lot with drug addicts, is they will be clean for a little while, and then they'll use again, and they pass away the first time they use again because they're still using the same amount that they would use right before they got clean, and they've been clean for a long time, so their tolerance is at a completely different level. And even though that's the amount that they did regularly back when they were using a lot, their body can't handle that now. And that happens to a lot of people. And that's what happened to Janis Joplin. All right, let's go to New York. So I don't know if you heard about this, but New York has been trying to pass a law that basically allows non-citizens to vote, which, if you look at the population of New York right now, that would allow 800,000 non-citizens to vote in local elections, like mayoral elections, city council, things like that. And so this new, Eva, hold on, let me get my cat. Jeez Louise. Get away from there. No. He's being bad. Yeah, it probably is more than that. That's clearly an estimated number. But this new mayor that was elected into office, he just got into office. Bad Eva. Eva. Say hello. Say hello. Say, I want to go outside. That's what you're doing. She's like, are you going to help? She does look like Grumpy Cat. But anyway, so this new mayor that came into office, everyone thought he was going to be, he did used to work for law enforcement, and everyone thought that he was going to be a lot better than de Blasio, and I'm pretty sure he is a little bit better than de Blasio, but he's turning out to be pretty radical, and New York Republicans are pushing back. So I'll let you know what's going on there. This makes me so mad. Why would you ever think that it's okay to pass something like this? But anyway, we'll go into it a little bit more. A group of New York Republicans filed a lawsuit Thursday to block a new law that would soon allow about 800,000 non-citizens to vote in local elections. And of course, this isn't like the presidency or anything like that, but if you've followed the topics that we've talked about on this channel, or if you've been paying attention, you have realized, probably more so within the past 2 years than any other time, how freaking important local politics are and local elections are, almost more important than the presidency. These are things that will directly affect you. Look at all of our rogue DAs and the chaos that's happening because of that in a lot of people's areas. So the suit filed in Staten Island Supreme Court asks a judge to issue an injunction that prevents the City Board of Elections and the mayor from implementing the law in any respect due to its unconstitutionality. Yeah, and that's the thing. How is this constitutional? I don't understand. The law is clear and the ethics are even clearer. We shouldn't be allowing citizens of other nations to vote in our elections. Full stop. We are only 2 weeks into the Abrams administration, and he is already kowtowing to the radical city council. The lawsuit is the only thing that will stop them from their ultimate goal of eradicating all the lines between citizens and non-citizens. Representative Nicole Malatakis, I think you say it. I can never pronounce her name correctly. I apologize. Called the new measure careless, claiming it dilutes the perspective of U.S. citizens. There is nothing more important than preserving the integrity of our election system. The right to vote is a sacred right given only to United States citizens. The careless legislation violates the state constitution, dilutes the voices of American citizens, and is not in line with the views of the vast majority of our city. And that's a really, really good point. All of these radical policies, and this just goes to show you how what's happening in our country to me is it's a difference between class. It's not necessarily like Republican, Democrat at this point. It's an issue of class. These people in city council, this mayor, they are so far removed. They are such in an echo chamber. They are so far removed from what the average person wants. The average person, I would argue, I do not have the numbers in front of me, but I would argue that the average citizen does not think it's okay for people that are not citizens to be voting in any election. And I don't know if you heard about this, but it was announced today that in California, Governor Gavin Newsom wants to give free health care to illegal immigrants. So he wants all illegal immigrants to have free health care. And who is going to pay for that? Citizens. U.S. citizens are going to be paying for the health care of people that come into the country illegally and that are not citizens. How is that okay? Especially in a state like California and a state like New York where you have higher taxes than most places, and they want to do things like this. Of course, voting isn't costing taxpayers money, but they could be voting for things that cost taxpayers a lot of money. And in California, you have the highest taxes out of anywhere, and now you're asking your people that are already suffering because of the high cost of living. People are already moving out of California. California lost more citizens in the past year than it gained, and a lot of that has to do with how much it costs to live there, the cost of living. And now you're asking these people to pay for people that should not even be there. They clearly do not respect American law if they are here illegally. And now you are asking people that do the right thing, people that are here legally, trying to take care of their families, you're asking them to take care of. And how, if something like this passes, and I don't think that politicians in California have as much of a backbone as probably New York Republicans. But how is that constitutional that you're asking people to pay for people that are not here legally? How is it constitutional to allow people to vote that are not here legally? That is one of the proudest things that you do when you become a legal citizen, is you get the right to vote. And I completely agree that it dilutes the American right to vote. It's a slap in the face to people. Plaintiffs in the suit, Assemblyman Michael Riley and Councilman David Carr, as well as Councilwoman Ina Joanna Ariola and Vicky Palladino. Along with the local GOP members, constitutional experts have raised legal concerns about the law ahead of its passage. The state constitution, Article 2, Section 1, grants the right to vote in all elections to every citizen 18 years of age or older. Every citizen shall be entitled to vote at every election for all officers elected by the people and upon the questions submitted to the vote of the people, provided that such citizen is 18 years of age or over and shall have been a resident of this state and of this county, city, or village for 30 days next preceding an election. Anyone reading NY state election law in plain English can see that it prohibits foreign citizens from voting. The new law passed in December by the city council, despite objections from several members, was given the thumbs up by Mayor Eric Adams on Saturday when he announced that he was allowing the measure to pass. He goes on to say, while I initially had some concerns about one aspect of the bill, I had a productive dialogue with my colleagues in government that put those concerns at ease. I believe allowing the legislation to be enacted is by far the best choice and look forward to bringing millions more into the democratic process. The decision came after he, on January 1st, expressed reservations about the aspect of the law that requires non-citizens to live in the 5 boroughs for just 30 days to be able to cast ballots in municipal contests. While the legislation does not allow lawful permanent residents or others with authorization to work who aren't citizens to participate in federal state elections, it grants legal permanent non-citizen residents the right to vote for mayor, controller, public advocate, borough president, council member, and local ballot initiatives, and takes in effect in 2023. So we'll see what happens with this. I don't understand how this is constitutional. I am not a law expert, but I have some sense. I think a lot of people thought that Eric Adams was going to be a lot more moderate than he is. But he's turning out to be pretty radical. And this isn't a big deal, but I just thought this was really interesting because I actually saw when he said this, and you guys know I'm super critical of AOC, but I actually kind of agreed with her on this one. So he went on to talk about how he didn't want to keep, and I think this is one of the reasons why he got elected, that he didn't want to keep New York shut down. And while he was explaining this, he did say this. He said, and I don't know if my businesses are sharing with their employees. You are a part of the ecosystem of this city, my low-skilled workers. He says they don't have the academic skills to sit in a corner office. They need this. We are in this together. So basically, like, I agree with what he was saying, but it was weird how he said this. And again, this just goes to show you how so out of touch so many politicians are. So he was talking about, okay, if we shut things down, you know, the people that work in offices, they can work remotely, but those low-skilled workers who don't have academic skills, he was saying, you know, like servers, hostesses, cooks, people that work in retail, stuff like that. He was calling them low-skilled workers who don't have the academic skills to work in other industries. And he did have a point. He was saying that they can't just work from home. They have to be there and work. These are people that provide an in-person service, whereas people that work in an office they can work from home, so they're not losing out of anything. And AOC hit back by saying the suggestion that any job is low skill is a myth perpetuated by wealthy interests to justify inhumane working conditions, little/no healthcare, and low wages. Plus, being a waitress has made me and many others better at our jobs than those who have never known that life. I actually agree with maybe not the first part so much, but I agree with the second part of what AOC said. He kind of clapped back at her and said she was being the word police, which I don't agree with people policing words and stuff like that. But I just thought that was incredibly odd and out of touch how he categorized that. And he did say that he used the wrong language. He should have said, what did he say? He should have said low wage workers. But again, why would you even say that? Why wouldn't you just say the service industry, the retail industry, the hospitality industry? Because just because you work one of those jobs does not mean a lot of people are working their way through school. A lot of people have second jobs. They're just making extra money. And a lot of people maybe just like working in those industries. Some of them are business owners. That was pretty odd. I don't know about this guy. Not a huge deal, but I just thought I would bring that up. I thought that was very weird. Oh, and I wanted to because most of these politicians genuinely dislike the working class. It almost seems that way. And to think, I think I've said this before, I never trust anyone that's never been poor or someone that's never had some sort of like, part-time job, whether you were growing up or you had it through college or you had it now, someone that's never worked at like a restaurant or never worked in retail. I think I agree with AOC that really, when you work those jobs, even if you don't have to, it just builds on your character so much. So I agree with her there. And it makes you better at everything else. It makes you a lot more empathetic. Even though I don't like AOC, I don't think she practices those skills all the time. I think AOC is someone that probably knows better, but I really do think she enjoys kind of being this political celebrity and she just eats it up. That's what I think about her. But she was right. I think, and not everyone that works there is low skilled. Some people choose to have those jobs. Some people like it. Some people are working through school, a lot of stuff. The correct thing for him to say, not that I'm, again, trying to police his language, would have been, those are my hospitality workers, my service industry workers, my retail workers, my business owners. I mean, oh my gosh. You're just criticizing AOC because she won't date you. This thing, okay, whatever. You called me out. The funny thing was, we are already paying for it and have been for, I think you guys are having a conversation. Yes, and now everyone's saying that AOC has COVID because COVID wants to date her. I worked through 3 university degrees in service industries. And Lance, I bet it made you a better person. Working those jobs makes you a better person. It really does build character, in my opinion. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I used to work at JP Morgan Private Bank. I worked there for maybe like 2 years while I was transitioning from one industry to another. And I worked with a lot of people who are there because of nepotism, or they're there simply because of where they went to school. So a lot of the people that worked there, a lot of the bankers grew up incredibly wealthy. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't mind. But they grew up incredibly wealthy, went to Ivy League school, got their MBA, and then went directly and worked for, JP Morgan Private Bank. And they never had service jobs, or they never worked their way really through anything. They just had a very sheltered, very sort of upper middle class life. And they were all really nice, but a lot of them, I hate to say it, but a lot of them just lacked character. They were not interesting. I mean, they were nice. They were fine. I have no issues, but they weren't interesting people to me. There's something missing. There's a character missing. And actually, but it doesn't have to be that way. A very cool person that I met, I was actually in acting class with her, was Sophie Simmons. So Sophie Simmons is Gene Simmons' daughter, and I really respect the way that Gene Simmons raised his kids, because you have to understand, he had that rock star money. Like, he is just uber wealthy, Gene Simmons, super famous. And so clearly, Sophie grew up in that environment, but he had Sophie go, and I think she did this when she was maybe a teenager. I can't remember exactly how old she was, but he actually had her go and live in a third world country, and she would live with these families and help them start businesses. And so even if you're that wealthy, even if you live that lifestyle, you can do things to develop character and to see how other people live. And she actually does have a really great character. She's a really nice person. But something like that really showed her how other people live, and helping these families to start businesses so that they can be successful on their own and earn their own wages. And I think she would help them. They would get them go through, I don't know what they did. But so that just goes to show that even if you grow up in this sheltered uber, props to Shannon Tweed too. She seems like a badass. Yeah. And Sophie looks like the perfect mix between both of them. And yeah, I respect how they raised their children. And the same goes with Hollywood. You meet so many people in Hollywood that they have they're empty inside. They have no character because they're so obsessed with all material things. They put all of their time and energy and thought and value in their outside appearance or on material things, and they don't work on developing character, and they're blah. That's the only way I can describe them. They're blah. Shannon Tweed was in Playboy. I knew that, and she modeled for other things too, right? Okay. Elitist politician. Yeah, it's funny because when I was looking for things to talk about, I saw that him and AOC were having a back and forth. Who is Eric Adams? He's the new mayor of New York City. So he took over for Bill de Blasio. And I think a lot of people, I know I already said this, but I think a lot of people were excited because they thought he was going to be a little bit more moderate than Bill de Blasio. But one of the first things he did is okays this bill to pass. Was he reading a prepared statement or freestyling? I think he was freestyling. I mean, it's clearly something he thought about saying, but he wasn't actually reading anything. And it's funny because I remember seeing that when he said it, and this is still when I had a lot of hope for him. I really liked him. And one of the first things he did was he rode the subway to work. But who knows? That was probably for optics. But he rode the subway for work. I know his history with law enforcement, so I was thinking, okay, this guy's going to be really cool. And I do remember seeing him say that, seeing him at a press conference sort of say that. And I do remember it kind of rubbed me a weird way. I was like, that's just an odd choice of words. And then AOC clapped back at him. Whatever. Anyway, before I go, I wanted to share this with you. So, Rochelle Walensky is the CDC director, and she's been getting some backlash. The CDC in general has been getting a lot of backlash for just not being an institution that people can trust anymore. They seem to go back and forth all the time. And I don't know if you know this, but Rachel Walensky has had to go through months of media training because the optics are so bad. It's so bad that CNN now is even calling it out. And for CNN to call out your credibility, that's pretty bad. And I actually said this, if you were on the live stream last night, I said this last night, and I said it wrong because I said Brian Stelter was calling. And I'll play you the clip. So this is what Brian Stelter was saying about the CDC.
Here's the Today Show. Here's Savannah Guthrie interviewing the CDC director, being very much in touch with the public, recognizing the CDC has turned into a punchline. It is so sad, but it's true. The CDC has turned into a punchline. Watch.
All of this mixed messages or new messages has led to a meme on social media poking fun at the CDC's advice. Tweets like, CDC now recommends eating straight off the floor at Waffle House. The CDC now says it's in fact okay to eat Tide Pods. The CDC says go ahead and get bangs. You know, it's amusing, people letting off steam, of course, but is there a larger credibility problem with your agency right now?
And the answer is yes. There's a huge credibility crisis for the CDC. And Oliver, to your point, it just causes people, if they hear all these mixed messages and all this confusion and it's all too complicated, they just move on and ignore it. Here's the...
I know, I love... The CDC says it's okay to get bangs. I think that was my favorite one. But that's the first time I think I agreed with Brian Stelter. But I will say, I think Brian Stelter, I do think there's more going on there. I think he realizes what a disaster this is. And they're really trying to do damage control before the midterm elections. And they have to at this point because it's just so bad. I mean, you have ABC and CNN calling out the CDC. Is there a new conservative? Did they find a new conservative for The View? Okay, I'll look that up before I go. But here's Rachel Walensky again, and this is why people don't trust the CDC. This is what she's saying now. This was earlier.
Of death. The overwhelming number of deaths, over 75%, occurred in people who had at least 4 comorbidities. So really, these are people who were unwell to begin with.
Paying attention to the who? Oh yes, that's a whole other bag. So now she's admitting that the majority of the people, the overwhelming 75% of people that are passing away from the virus are people that had at least 4 comorbidities. So there's a lot of narrative shifting, and this is why people do not trust the CDC. The View conservative co-host. Did they find one, or did I read that wrong? Oh, they're still struggling. Well, it's just funny. They can't find a conservative host because they have all these stipulations. You can't be a fan of Donald Trump, and you have to buy into their narrative on January 6th, which you don't even have to be a conservative to know that narrative is just baloney. Candace Owens should troll The View for a job. That would not last 2 days. They would not even have a Candace Owens. She makes way too much sense for them. That is why health should not be politicized. I totally agree with that. It never should have been. And they politicized it so much. They censored so many voices. And that's why, like, I tried not to talk about it too much because I'm such a small channel, and they just censored everything. You can't even have an open dialogue or an open conversation about it. Help wanted, a conservative co-host for The View who comes with a seal of approval from liberals and a guarantee she won't upstage the other women on the show. The seemingly impossible job description says sources connected to ABC's top-rated daytime show is why. The View can't find or hold on to a permanent conservative female co-host to join the liberal moderate mainstays. They are not moderate. Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, and Sarah Haynes 6 months after the tense departure of Meghan McCain. Instead, the panel show launched by Barbara Walters, now 92 and long retired in 1997, has turned into a revolving door of returning or recurring co-hosts. At least one promising potential hire went south over New York City mandates. It's driving Whoopi crazy. Having people come in and out with not one permanent interrupts the flow of the show. But some wonder why a conservative outcast would even want to join. Exactly. Who wants to sit through that? Don't underestimate how mean some of the people at the table can be, the former ABC executive said. There are those who won't sign on just because of that. I agree. They're annoying and they're mean. Current executive producer Brian Tata, previously longtime producer for The Late Show with David Letterman, is too much of a people pleaser. The former ABC executive said the panel runs right over him. He won't want to choose someone that will make others mad. So I really wonder who's making the casting decisions over there. The View hasn't had a conservative host in a long time, conservative author Candace Owens told The Post. It was kind of a joke to hire Meghan McCain in the Trump era. She was not reflecting the views of conservatives in the country, and she was lambasting us. They have a fear of having a true conservative on the network. These ladies aren't exactly the most intellectual ladies. I don't think they work in truth. That's exactly why. Meghan McCain did not hold the views, I think, of most conservatives at that time, and I think they don't want to be outshined and they don't want to be challenged too much because there's nothing behind their argument. Candace Owens is exactly right. They are not intellectual ladies. The show insider agreed and went further, alleging that The View and ABC executives are biased in favor of liberals and at the same time hypocritical. The fundamental problem here is that all of these conditions about what kind of conservative they want to come on the show, there's no conditions of what kind of liberal they want to be on the show from the get-go. It's not a hand that's fair. While The View is scrambling to figure out whether someone they want to have on is too conservative or not, they do not pay their talent any maternity leave. Oh, wow. For all their liberal family value BS, none of it holds sway and it comes to putting their money where their mouth is. It's one of these open secrets that people are constantly outraged about. Thank you, and there you go. Proof that all of these super liberal people that preach to everyone else and that condemn everyone else and that police everyone else do not put their money where their mouth is. There's not even maternity leave on their show. Debbie Matenopoulos. Does anyone remember her? She was on the show a while ago. Debbie Matenopoulos. She was one of the show's original hosts. So she said this. She said, "The View is no longer her kind of place, and she's not even sure she'd want to come back full time. The show has changed so dramatically. Our show used to be light and fun, a bunch of women sitting around a table and saying where they were coming from. It's now a hardcore political show, which I don't think was ever even Barbara's intention," Barbara Walters, who started the show. "Whatever Republican person they get, I hope she maybe talks more like the women at home with 3 kids and less like she writes for Politico. They need someone with a big heart who will help to heal the country, not continue to divide it." I like that. I think that's pretty cool. Well, there you have it. Debbie is a Richmond, VA girl. Is she really? I didn't know that. I think I remember her on the show now. I sort of remember it when Barbara Walters was on. All right, you all, that's everything I have for you right now. I'll probably be live tomorrow night again. I'm working on a very cool video about wokeness and how it might have started from a website. It didn't totally start from a website, but I'm looking that up and researching that. It's very, very interesting, very shocking. I had no idea about this. But anyway, I'll probably be live tomorrow night. If anyone wants to join, it'll probably be around like 8 or 8:30 p.m. And I hope everyone has a fabulous day. Thank you for joining. That was a lot of fun. And I'll see you all later. Bye, everyone. Have a good day, wherever it is that you are. Okay, see you later.